What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Phil. Welcome back to my channel. You might have heard about the new Samsung S20 coming out in a couple of weeks. And with that announcement being made, two things about the camera stood out to me. Video recording in 8K and a new 108 megapixel camera. Those two features were kind of disappointing to me, and I want to explain why and also talk about why this could be potentially bad for the development of video making with smartphones. And we're gonna only talk camera here. I don't care about the rest of the smartphone, and more specifically video making, or even more specific, YouTube video making, aka vlogging, and the style of shots you need for making video content for YouTube. I think smartphone cameras at this point are pretty amazing already, and I think they're about to kill off the entire point and shoot camera market, and they're already seriously attacking the mirrorless camera market too. 2019 was an amazing year for smartphone videography because all of the new generation phones came out with this triple camera lens setup. You have the main camera lens, you have most of the times a zoom lens, and a lot of manufacturers implemented the ultra wide angle lens, which is the most important for YouTubers and for video makers. And to be honest, at this point, all the main lenses of the new phones are absolutely amazing and good enough. And I think what the manufacturers in the upcoming years have to work on are the secondary and the third and fourth and whatever lens they put in there, because those are the ones where the quality does not quite add up to the ones of the main lenses yet. So main thing they should focus on in my mind are the ultra wide camera lenses. And that is exactly where the problem comes in with Samsung and its 8K video recording and 108 megapixel announcement. Both of those specs might at the moment not only be unnecessary but also bad for non-high-end video makers because A, the file sizes will be huge. Have you ever made the step from 1080p to 4K? The file sizes substantially increase, which will take up a lot of space on your phone, on your SD card, on your computer, wherever you put your files. It will also be so hard to save the files, transfer the files, and load the files up again. And all of that leads up to B, it will be a terrible workflow if you want to work with these files. And if you're just going to take huge photos or huge videos on your phone, have it on there, never look at it again, you will not have that problem. But if you want to create content, if you want to move the files, edit the files in some editing program, then export it, render it, upload it, all of that gets slowed down so much. Anybody who has never done it is just not aware of these problems. It really comes down to how easy is your workflow, because if your workflow gets slowed down by a huge amount, it just becomes a huge pain in the butt and you will really not enjoy yourself shooting anymore. And these huge files and that terrible slow workflow will come with a so slight increase in picture quality that most people and current devices in 2020 will not notice the difference. So why does Samsung do it? I can really only think of the reason they do it for marketing purposes, kind of for like people who just want bragging rights in their phone. And it sounds to me it's marketed towards teenagers on the courtyard who kind of argue about who has the bigger megapixel amount. Yo, Ronald, check out my new iPhone 11 Pro Max. It has this awesome video camera with like 11 or 12 megapixels. It's supposed to be one of the best ones at the moment. Bro, that's totally ridiculous. You know what? My new Samsung S20 Ultra has 108 megapixels. So it's kind of like 10 times better than yours. It is 2020 and we are just in a transition period from Full HD to 4K, and I think it's still most important for most cameras in the non-high-end sector to improve on their Full HD aka 1080p quality and then potentially move on to 4K, but going with 8K at this point in time is just really funny and ridiculous. So about the 108 megapixel camera, the first phone that implemented that was the Xiaomi Note 10. And yes, there are some positive things, like you can blow up the pictures, you can zoom in a lot, it's pretty sharp. However, there are other things that are important or even more important for a picture to turn out nicely, and that is what the manufacturers should focus on instead of just fooling us with super high numbers of megapixels. If you think about it, if you're gonna take a picture with a full resolution, the picture will turn out to be something like 70 megabyte big if it's a JPEG format. I don't even know how big that 108 megapixel picture would be in RAW. It will take a couple of seconds to save it and also to load it up again, and not even speaking about transferring it or whatever. Just, I know how many pictures I take nowadays with these phones. If somebody's like, hey, can you take my picture? It's always like, pop, 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 pop. Oh, I just took 20. You chose the best one. And if you do that with that kind of sensor, that will become an annoying process. But going back to video, I really think the most important part they should focus on is the ultra wide sensor, because again, the main sensors are all amazing at this time. The best one at the moment probably is the iPhone 11 still, but then I'm very happy with the Samsung A10 that I have here. However, I got most excited for the ultra wide angle lens, and that still does not perform up to the main lenses level. And if you think about in video terms, Full HD equals to like 2.1 megapixels, 4K equals to like 8.5 megapixels, and the new 8K would kind of equal to 33 megapixels. And there are a couple of examples why we really do not need these high megapixel numbers or resolutions for video making. For example, most video cameras YouTubers use nowadays are APS-C sized or full frame mirrorless cameras, and most of the good ones come with a megapixel sensor of like 22, 24 megapixels up to 32 megapixels. One of the best YouTuber cameras of the last years was the Sony a7S II. That is notoriously good for video making and low light performance, and that thing had a sensor of 12.2 megapixels. That is all we need. Another example, one of the most used cameras in Hollywood for actual movies and stuff is the Arri Alexa Mini, and that thing only has a resolution of 3.4K, so that is below 4K. And they use that thing for everything. For example, scenes of Game of Thrones were shot on that. The Joker movie was partly shot on that. The Han Solo Star Wars spin-off movie was partly shot on that. So if they use cameras that are not even 4K resolution, I really think me as a content creator for YouTube do not need that. And the average person with a smartphone in their pocket, do you really think they need 8K then? Alright, so all these points aside, this will of course not mean that they will not improve on the camera sensors that are worth improving on, aka the ultra wide lens or the zoom lenses and all that stuff. However, what we have to be aware of, and I think it's our duty as creators to make people aware of that these numbers, the high numbers in megapixels, the 8Ks, that is just a marketing gag, and if people jump on the hype train and do the comparisons, that will just enable these companies to further focus on these crazy numbers. They should instead focus on things that are actually usable and make life easier for us content creators.